Welcome to my podcast story, the show where podcasters share the real journey behind their voices, from their first mic check to their biggest milestones. Every episode reveals the lessons, challenges, and breakthrough that shape a podcast star's journey. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I can't wait for you to hear today's story. Your podcast,
Brandi Starr, and the podcast is Revenue Rehab.
Revenue Rehab. Wow. How long have you been doing the podcast?
3 years.
Wow. I've been doing this thing for a long time. Wow. Yeah. And so what inspired you to start the podcast?
So we are a B2B marketing operations consultancy, and we launched a book back in 2020. And as a result of launching the book, we were guest on podcast because, of course, during the pandemic, we couldn't do a book tour or anything like that. And so we did a lot of podcast guesting. And through that process and talking to other people, we recognized that there was a good opportunity for us to share our expertise as well as be able to connect with our current and potential customers. And so, with being a service-based business as a consultancy, people need to know that we exist before they actually need us. And so the podcast is one way to connect, to have people know who we are, to know, like, and trust us, so that hopefully we are on their short list when they actually need a consultancy.
And the moment before we talk about anything, I want us to I'll pull up my screen. I want to show you. I want us to look at your YouTube channel and then you show us some of the things you're doing behind the scenes. Okay. So this is the channel, right? What's this Tegrita? Is that the name of the company?
Yes, that is the name of the company.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Because I was seeing it, I was like, where's Tegrita coming from? Wow. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the company before we start fully talking about the podcast.
Yeah, so Tegrada is a marketing operations consultancy. And so we lead with process and really helping B2B mid market organizations figure out how to effectively go to market. So our clients, they have their overall strategy, they have their product positioning, all of those things in place, and they need to figure out how to effectively orchestrate that prospect and customer journey. And so, as a part of that process, they are leveraging technology. They've got, the human resources that they have, and then they also have the process. And so, we help make sure the tech is working. So, we do a lot of integration, system administration, as well as strategy around how do they enable their go to market strategy with the technology. And so we are technically a Toronto based organization, but we're all remote. And so we are pretty much spread throughout the US and Canada.
Oh, oh, okay. How often do you release episodes?
Every Wednesday.
Oh, well, YouTube has always been like from day one or something that was added along the way.
YouTube has always been from day one. So if you click on playlist, you should see a playlist that is specific to the podcast Revenue Rehab. Yeah, and you can click into it there. You can see there's 163 episodes. But under videos, there are a lot of other videos. And so when we launched the podcast, it initially streamed live. So it streamed live on YouTube and Twitter, or I guess now it's called X, and LinkedIn. And we have since decided to pull the plug on the live streaming, but all of our episodes still hit YouTube along with all of the podcast platforms.
Something strange is happening. I don't know if I'm the one noticing it or if it's my network. So the videos, the podcast, you mentioned that it's live. The podcast is actually like they're live streams,
Yes,
not
they
like regular
were up.
videos.
Yeah, so you can see all the podcast episodes there. There is also a playlist if you click on playlist where it has all the podcast episodes in there. Because as you saw, we have a lot of other videos that are not just the podcast as well.
Wow. But what about shots?
We do some of those as well.
But it appears that the shots they're like they're not repurposed content.
No, they are completely separate.
Oh, okay. So behind the scenes now, how's the podcast been doing for the past 3 years?
It's been doing really well. We've had some changes and some evolutions over the years. Like I said, we used to stream live. We have also, or should I say, we're in the process of migrating from leveraging Streamyard to record to moving over to Riverside FM. And we've done that for a number of reasons. And
Okay.
then we also
Which include
use, huh?
you said you've done the movement from Streamyard to Riverside for a number of reasons, and I was like, which include
Oh,
what are the reasons? Yeah.
so the biggest reason is Riverside has magic clips, and the magic clips help save my team a lot of time in getting those good sound bites from the podcast, and being able to have those smaller videos that we can repurpose. So that was one of the biggest factors. The other piece of that is we wanted to start right now. I record an episode opener as a part of the actual episode. So with StreamYard, because we don't really edit. So with StreamYard, our intro video would play. I would do the episode opener, and then we jump straight into the conversation with the guest. However, sometimes those conversations go in different directions. And so, what we wanted to be able to do is post episode, we wanted to be able to record the episode opener and easily be able to attach that to the beginning before the intro video. Kind of like how old school TV, you saw a little bit of a clip before you saw, their intro. And StreamYard doesn't have
Yeah.
that capability.
But Riverside has it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That saves a ton of time and makes the process really seamless.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So other than the movement from StreamYard to Riverside, what other changes have you made?
Yeah, so we switched from having one episode format to now we have three. And so what we recognized was a challenge is so we have two main types of guests. One are subject matter experts who are industry analysts, consultants, tech vendors, etc., who are experts in a particular area, and they have, helped multiple companies with one challenge. And then we also have our VPs and CMOs who are actually, sitting in the seat doing the job, and they come on and share their wins. And early on, we were using the same format for all types of episodes. And so now we've split that out. So we have problem solving episodes, which are framed as a change my mind statement after the change my mind memes. And that's where we have our industry
Yeah.
experts join us. We have case study episodes, and that is where we are sharing a go-to-market success or win. And that's where we have the VPs and CMOs who are actually doing the job. And then we also launch solo episodes where I do the episode by myself. And that is an opportunity for us to share some of our expertise.
Yeah. I know you just explained three different episode formats, and right now some ideas are just popping up in my head, and that is the problem solving format, the case study format, and the solo episodes. Right? Three. What was the before you started doing the three? What was the major formats? The one and only formats on the podcast.
I'd call it generic. It wasn't specific to any type of content, like the opening, the icebreaker question, the way that the episode flowed. Those were just the same no matter who I was talking to. So we went from being more broad and generic with our format to being a bit more specific based on the kind of guests that we have.
Okay, okay, okay. And were there any special things that, other than having an organized, predictable show format. Was there any other factor that led to saying, okay, let's just change from doing whatever, anything, and having this structure towards creating a predictable value for the audience?
Um, I mean, so just looking at, we had solid numbers in terms of listenership. Um, and we also talked to some people that had listened to multiple episodes and kind of just got some feedback. For us, it was just more of it was time. Like, we made the official shift at episode 150. And so after 150 episodes, it was just time to really breathe some new air into it, add a little bit of freshness, look at some of our lessons learned. A couple times we had guests cancel last minute, and I ended up doing solo episodes more circumstantially. And so we recognized, like, oh, there's an opportunity for us to do that more. And so it really was just lots of, small lessons learned along the way and ideas that we had, that we decided to implement.
Oh, okay, okay. Now that you mentioned that you had solid numbers, um, what was the number like when you make that pivot?
Um, I don't remember. It probably sounds bad. My team manages all of the metrics.
Give me something
Um
to work with, please.
Honestly, I don't. So they are not big numbers. We are a B2B niche podcast. So we are not hitting the tops of anybody's charts. And that's not even a goal for us. I mean, we have, I'd
Yeah,
say our total listenership is probably less than 1,000. But for us, it is really, do we have the right people listening? More anecdotal evidence of, like, in some of the communities that I'm a part of, I've seen people who would be our target audience recommending episodes of the podcast, or, different things like that. So I would say we had comfortable numbers, but I have a team that handles all of that. I tend to get more of the trends and the aggregate numbers, and less of the nitty-gritty numbers. So sorry, I don't have anything for you
yeah,
there.
yeah. The reason I asked for the numbers is, a lot of um B2B podcasters will be listening to this podcast and they will be wondering, well, because most of the numbers out there are people that are in the entertainment, celebrity, gossip podcast. And so if you sign a B2B podcast, you're wondering, what should my numbers be like? And so I just wanted you, as an active B2B podcaster who have been doing this for about 3 to 4 years now, to for them to actually say, oh, so this is
Yeah,
what their number looks like.
what I can tell you is we did work with a consultancy when we launched the podcast. And one of the things that, he helped us to understand in looking at B2B niche podcast is reaching 20 to 60 listeners for an episode in the first week is a win. And so that is a key message for anyone that does have a B2B podcast, is success is really looking at small numbers. Some of the stats that they had provide was, most podcasts don't make it past 11 episodes. You're in like the top 50% if you get to episode 12. 6 listeners in the first 7 days is considered good for a B2B podcast. So when, if you're, and I just actually just did an episode about this, when you are in a B2B space, you really have to think about the impact on your audience and not hitting big numbers, because you're right. When you think about, like, the gossip podcast or some of the, the top ones that you see, they are bringing in, tens of thousands of listeners every day. But for most organizations, and those are also the people who look to monetize the podcast, they're taking advertisers and those sorts of things. So those numbers really matter. For a B2B niche
Yeah.
podcast, it is more, smaller, your total addressable market is smaller, but it is how do we, actually put ourselves in front of those people that are really our audience. And so that is also one of the reasons why I don't know the numbers, because I try to stay out of the specific numbers and look at the trends, because the trends are us competing against us. Like, are we trending upward with listenership? And as well as looking at time on episodes. So, like in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, even YouTube, they'll show you how long people are actually listening to episodes. And so, like, that is really where to focus. The small audience that you're getting, are they actually listening? Are they getting value? Are they referencing it? Are they calling you? And so that's really where we try to lean in.
What's your, before you start the podcast, what was like your role in the company?
My role hasn't changed. So I'm the chief operating officer with Tegrada. So I lead operations and marketing. So basically our internal team.
You make stuff happen.
And so, huh?
I say you make stuff happen.
Oh, yes. That's a good way
Yeah.
to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. So now that you still do your regular chief operating um what's the word?
Chief
Operation
operating officer.
management.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
You still
yeah.
do
So
that
the
regular one,
podcast
and
is
now you
just
added podcast into it.
Yes. So the podcast is just, I do a lot of content creation. So as you were scrolling through our YouTube, you saw all the YouTube shorts, some of the videos from me on stage, some of the videos from me doing webinars. So I also do some of the strategic consulting for some of our bigger clients. And so leveraging all the work and expertise that I do, I lean in and make a lot of content. And so our podcast is the main way that we're putting content out there.
Quick break. Before we continue, I'd love to invite you to join the My Podcast Story newsletter. Each week, I share highlights from our guest stories, behind the scenes podcasting tips, and resources to help you grow your own show. You can sign up at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. Now, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. Right now, I'm trying to like rack my brain and know if um outside, you have this you have the Revenue Rehab podcast, you have Tegrita, the company. Do you have like, I want to understand something like are you like, how do I say this now so it's understandable? Is Tegrita your company, or are you working for Tegrita?
I work for Tegrada. Yeah. So I am
You
not
said?
the owner of the company. I said I work for Tegrada. I'm not the owner of the company.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I needed to ask that question is because I have a follow-up question. And so it wouldn't make sense if I ask that question and let's say you were the founder of the company. So outside of Tegrita, do you build your own personal brand?
Oh, yes.
So what does that look like?
So the podcast is a key part of my personal brand. I mean, they are very like my work with Tegrada and my personal brand are very intertwined. Because I've been in marketing in this industry my entire career. And I've been at Tegrada half of my career. So I've been in marketing 24 years. I've been with Tegrada 10 years. And so the two are very intertwined. In addition to that, I am very big on professional community. So I am a leader in a couple of different communities. I do speaking engagements. So one of the things that was there, I just spoke at a women's breakfast, and it was more motivational in terms of women being able to take hold of their career, to lead boldly. So although technically I represented Tegrada during that event, it was not directly tied to Tegrada, because that was just more me sharing my career experience and some motivation for women who have hit a plateau in their career in order to, help them break out, be bolder, to be comfortable in their own skin. So I definitely build a personal brand, but at the same time, it is definitely very connected to the company brand. because the company is 10 and a half years old and I've been here 10. And so it's really difficult to disconnect the two.
Hmm. While you were talking, I went to do some sneaking around, and I'll show you what I'm seeing so that you you can get it. So this is your YouTube channel.
But yeah, that was so before we had the Tegrada YouTube channel, I was publishing content on mine. And so you can see that's why there's really not anything there, because all those videos are super, super old. And that was when we created the Tegrada channel and started publishing there. Ooh, that is so old. It was a definite flashback of seeing this.
Yeah, is there something I'm missing? But it appears you're getting younger year after year. No,
I will
like
take
no,
that.
no, like it's strange. I had to say it. Like I'm looking at you here, and I'm like, this is what you are supposed to look like right now. But now I'm wondering. I think you have taken this what do you call it now? This
I will say
anti-aging potion.
it is getting to a stress-free life. That is a big difference of
Oh,
being
you started eating money. I see. Then you're
yeah.
not making a lot of money. Now you are eating money.
No, it's not even about money. It's just about stress. I have done a lot to definitely de-stress and have a lot more balance and things about myself, which I do feel like makes me age a little bit backwards when you don't have, so many
Oh.
things weighing you down.
Yeah, if there was no proof, I wouldn't have believed it myself. I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you and I'm looking at, and I'm wondering what's going on here. Uh, like, wow, keep doing whatever you're doing. I don't know, but just
Well,
keep doing
thank
it.
you.
Wow. So for that specific speech you gave, right? How, like, when was that? When did you give that speech? That motivational
Um,
speech you talked about.
yeah, that was just a month ago. Yeah, that was in April.
Okay. The recording of the speech, do you have it with you?
Yeah, it's on the Tegrada YouTube.
Okay, 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 okay. Yeah,
Yeah, he'll
yeah.
see it
So
right on
you
the Tegrada YouTube. It's called
okay?
"Don't Be Afraid to Ruffle Feathers." Yeah, and if you just hit videos and right there,
Oh yeah,
the
don't be
third
afraid
one.
to ruffle feathers. Oh
Yep.
wow. Okay. So you active. I want to understand something because your LinkedIn, that's yours, right? And then you have the company LinkedIn page, but you're active on your LinkedIn.
Yes.
Your Instagram, do you have your own personal Instagram page?
Yes.
Are you on TikTok?
Yeah. Well, I have my own TikTok mainly just for scrolling and posting silly videos with my friends. All of my professional TikTok content we have on a Revenue Rehab TikTok.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. The podcast, right? If you of all the functions that a podcast could do, there's lead generation, there's customer awareness, there's what's it called now, customer relationship, and which I know a podcast does all of them, but oftentimes it's usually leans towards one or the other more than the
Awareness.
complete package. Which yeah, okay, awareness. Oh, okay.
Yep. It is a
Okay, so
way
how do you even
to help people know that we exist. And to again go, after that know like trust before they need a consultancy.
know that the podcast is working? Like, do you talk to the customers?
Yeah, so this is where I was saying earlier that we look at a lot of anecdotal evidence. So there are a number of spaces where our target audience is consistently at. So LinkedIn is one. There's a number of go-to-market communities. And we look at a lot of evidence where we see people recommending the episodes. I've seen in a community someone had asked for advice on something, and somebody who doesn't actually know me was like, "Oh, I just listened to this episode of this podcast that was on that," and they shared the link to the podcast. Likewise, we've had scenarios where I've gone to events that are our target audience, and people are like, I feel like I know you. And then they're like, oh, I follow your podcast. Or our sales team
Yeah.
will go into sales conversations. And somebody will be like, oh, I follow the podcast. And so that little bit of a connection helps to break down some of those walls of, when you're in a sales conversation, it can be, a bit awkward. You're trying to impress them, they're trying to find out their information. So when there's that little bit of connection, it goes a long way. And so we see consistent examples of that. And that is what tells us that it is working from a brand awareness perspective. So we look at some of the numbers in terms of website visits and things like that that come from, related to the podcast. But honestly, the anecdotal evidence speaks volumes for us that the podcast is working.
If you were to grade the podcast from A to F, what grade would you give the podcast right now? So far,
Right now, we're a solid B.
B plus or B minus?
Just B. Like, we're not B minus because B minus is on its way to C, but we're not quite B plus because that's almost A. Like, we are
Okay.
solid B.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
are,
Okay.
all the changes that I said that we've been working on is where we are working towards at least getting the A minus. But I'm very realistic about where we are from a process perspective, like a guest experience perspective. We're an A plus. Like, I get so many guests that give feedback and say we are the most organized, most enjoyable experience. So on that, the operational side of things, I would say we're definitely an A plus. But in terms of reach and content and those things, we were at a B minus. We've progressed into a B, and we're headed for B plus. But we're still in a little bit of that transition growth phase.
How instrumental would you say earlier you mentioned that when you started the podcast, you consulted the podcast consultant or podcast coach. How instrumental would you say that move was for the podcast?
It helped us with speed. Like, there was a lot of things that technically we could have figured them out on our own. But we saw working with a consultant as a shortcut. Like, we didn't have to fumble our way through certain things. They took us step by step in helping us sort through the name, the audience, what tools we were going to use, the format, all these sorts of things. So having that guidance, I would say we went from where we kicked off the project to like live podcast, first episode out there in like 3 months. And for a consultancy of our size with our resources, that was actually pretty fast in getting it all out there, getting episodes, getting guests, all of that. And probably would have been double that amount of time if we didn't have the consultancy. So I would say it was essentially the cheat code for us was starting with someone, because both of the two consultants were brothers. They both had their own really successful podcasts, very different. One was a B2B podcast. The other was in the sports and entertainment. And so it was a completely different, but having that collective expertise really shortcut things for us.
Why do I feel like I know these people you're talking about?
It's the Dwoskin brothers. John and Jeff Dwoskin.
Never
I'm
heard
like,
of
it's
them.
not a secret. They were awesome. So I would definitely recommend
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, never heard of them. Because I have a different guest that I interviewed. They're they're not yeah, they're brothers too, yeah. Yeah, they're brothers too. And they're on the HubSpot network. Yeah. So when you said brothers, I thought about them and I was like, yeah, I didn't know that's someone else. Okay.
So we got multiple podcasting brothers.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that everything is working out for the podcast. And how much would you say? I know you have a team and I know that, but how much would you say it's with the support and help you have from your team? How much time would you say it takes you to do the podcast as the mouthpiece and the face of the podcast?
So for me, it's actually not that much. So it usually takes me about 45 minutes to prep for each episode. And then I usually spend probably 2 hours a month prospecting guests. So, generally reaching out. My team does some of the reach out, so it kind of depends. Like for case study guests, I do the reach out myself because it's peer to peer. For some of the subject matter experts, they reach out on my behalf. So, and then, let's say 2 hours an episode, eight, let's say about 10 hours a month. I'd say 10 to 15 hours a month for my time. And then, for my team, I would say they probably spend 5 hours a week on the podcast. So 20, 25 hours a month for them.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a ton.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that's with us not really editing. Like a lot of podcasters, they record and then, they have to like kind of chop it up. We don't do that. Like we record and it goes as is. Like the only things like now that we're on Riverside, we use the little thing that removes all the ums. And we're going to record, that episode opener later, but that's literally it. We're still not doing the, recording and packaging because that is so much more work that we don't have the skill set or the time for.
Yeah, yeah. And it's when the way with the workflow and the approach you're using right now, it makes it what to put it now. It saves a ton of time. But doing that after post production, I mean that there's a lot of things that you need to touch, you need to fix. You end up spending a ton of time, which you don't like. You have other things you could be doing for the business other than podcast. Um, right now the podcast is called Revenue Rehab, and from the title of the podcast, without even reading any description or knowing anything about the podcast, what I would think the podcast is about is that, oh, it's about revenue. It's about how to make my revenue better and stuff like that. Right. That's like, I really suddenly know that, oh, this podcast is talking about making more revenue. So if you were to create a category for the podcast, the industry category, not the one that's on the podcast platform, what category of podcast would you say you're in? Do you need me to give an example?
No, I would say it is go-to-market optimization. Because, the tagline that we use is it's like therapy, but for your funnel. So it has kind of a therapy slant of we want to, change the way that people are thinking about revenue, and how they are actually going to market and trying to challenge some of the norms. Or in some cases, we agree with some of the, industry best practices and things that people are talking about, but you hear all these things and you don't really know how does that actually show up. And so that is our sweet spot. So yeah, if I had to make up a category for it, it is marketing optimization, go-to-market optimization. It kind of sits like we really focus on marketing, but it is holistic in terms of go-to-market.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If you said go to market strategy, if you were to move on to kind of like an onion, right? That has layers and layers and layers. What will be the next bigger category that covers go to market? Can you hear me?
Yes, you froze for a second. I know you said like an onion, it has layers, and then I couldn't hear the rest.
Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I said if you were to move on to the next category, what would kind of like an onion, how I have bigger and bigger and bigger layers? What would be the next big category that covers that go-to-market strategy?
I mean, that honestly is the outer layer, would be go-to-market optimization. Like I actually started from the outside of the onion. Um, And if we think about the layers of that, if we were to come in a layer, it is going to be journey orchestration. Like, how do we actually orchestrate the buyer journey? Like, the buyer is going through what they go through. We have to try to influence that. And so, what does orchestration look like? So, from a tech, a people process, how do we we can't control it, but how do we influence that journey? And so that would be the next piece in there. And then probably the kind of final layer is more strategies and tactics to do that. Like, let's get to the nitty gritty of the mindset, strategy, tactics that we need to orchestrate the journey in order to optimize go to market.
Yeah, yeah, because right now I'm saying that the overall big category is probably what you call a B2B podcast, right? But then and then it's layered down to go to market and then these other strategies you mentioned. Because the peculiar thing about having niche podcasts is that it's easy to like dominate and own a category compared to like trying to create a popular Me Too podcast.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that you came to the podcast to share your podcast story. And for me, the thing I noticed that you said it in passing, but um one of the things you mentioned is that your podcast has, well, like, the podcast has helped you to grow your personal brand as a marketer, as a CMO, as a CRO, as a CEO in the industry.
Yes, it definitely has.
What advice do you have for B2B podcasters that are thinking of starting a podcast?
Okay. So my advice for B2B podcasters would be to really focus in on what your purpose is. Why are you doing the podcast? Who are you really trying to serve? And what do they need to hear from you? And it's like really honing in on that is really key. One of the sort of self awareness things I had to recognize were there were a lot of topics that I was covering in the podcast because I found them interesting. However, when we looked at the data, a lot of those topics that were more off brand, so to speak, didn't resonate and people abandoned them early. And when I stayed on the topics that were most relevant to, what our core message is, that is where people listened a lot longer. And so my advice is really hone in on the audience and what they care about. I am, I'd love to, if you're a podcaster and, you've got questions about revenue rehab or want to connect with me, LinkedIn is the best place to do that. I am always on. Again, I am Brandi Starr. I am the Chief Operating Officer with Tegrada, and my podcast is Revenue Rehab. And our tagline is "It's like therapy, but for your funnel." So I appreciate you all listening and for the opportunity to share my podcast story with all of you.
Thank you so much, Brandy. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
You are welcome.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I hope you enjoyed listening to this journey as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. And don't forget to join the newsletter at mypodcaststory.com/join for more stories and podcasting insights. Until next time, keep telling your story because someone out there needs to hear it.